Imagine walking into your bridal suite on the morning of your wedding and finding your own sister wearing your wedding dress while your fiancé's hands are all over her. That was me. My name is Jane, and this is how the people I loved most betrayed me in the worst way possible. Stay with me as I take you through everything that happened, and if my story touches you, please don't forget to show your support. It really means a lot. When I first met William, I thought I had finally found my safe place in this world. He was charming, polite, and always seemed to know how to make me feel special. After years of dating men who didn't value me, William came across as the dream I had been waiting for. He was thoughtful, he had ambition, and he made promises that felt real. We had been together for almost 3 years before he proposed, and when he did, I thought my life had finally reached that picture-perfect fairy tale moment. But if I'm honest, I should have noticed the cracks long before the wedding day. My sister, Rose, was younger than me by 3 years. When we were little, we used to be close. We'd share secrets under the covers, laugh about silly things, and dream about our futures. But as we grew older, things shifted. Rose always carried this quiet jealousy, even though she never said it outright. I got into college first, I got the good job first, and now I was getting married first. She smiled on the outside, but there was always this edge in her eyes. Still, I convinced myself she loved me deep down. She was my sister, after all. Our parents, Linda and Mark, never helped the situation much. They loved us both, but they always seemed softer with Rose. Maybe it was because she was the younger one, maybe it was because she needed more attention, but I often felt like I had to be the responsible one, while she was allowed to make mistakes. It never bothered me too much, until William came into the picture. Emily, my best friend since high school, was the one person I could always rely on. She supported me through everything, and when wedding planning started, she became my anchor. The stress was overwhelming. Venues, flowers, guest lists, all the small things that could drive a bride crazy, but Emily made sure I didn't drown in it. Meanwhile, Rose threw herself into my wedding planning a little too eagerly. At first, I thought it was sweet. She offered to help pick decorations, came to dress fittings, and constantly asked about William. But sometimes her questions felt too personal. She'd laugh a little too loudly at his jokes, linger a little too close when we were all together. I noticed, but I brushed it aside. William was mine. Rose was just being Rose. Still, in the weeks before the wedding, I started to notice William acting different. He was distracted, often brushing me off when I tried to talk about the big day. He'd say he was busy with work, or helping Rose with some details. I wanted to believe him. I told myself I was just nervous about the wedding. That's what brides do, right? They overthink. If only I had trusted my gut. If only I had listened to the little voice in my head whispering that something wasn't right. Because what I was about to discover would shatter my world completely. The weeks leading up to the wedding were supposed to be the happiest of my life, but instead, I found myself torn between excitement and unease. Wedding planning was chaos. Endless phone calls, lists that never seemed to end, and decisions that felt impossible. From flowers to food to seating charts, everything demanded my attention. I was exhausted, but I kept reminding myself it was all worth it. After all, at the end of this storm, I'd be walking down the aisle toward William, the man I thought I was meant to spend forever with. But in the middle of this whirlwind, Rose started inserting herself into every little detail. At first, it seemed like sisterly love. She offered to help me taste cakes, compare invitation designs, and even called vendors when I was too drained to deal with them. I told myself I was lucky to have a sister so eager to be part of my big day. Still, there were moments that made me pause. She'd take charge in ways that didn't feel right, talking over me as if it was her wedding instead of mine. When I gently tried to set boundaries, she'd laugh it off, saying she was just trying to make sure it's perfect. What unsettled me more was how William behaved during all this. With me, he started to grow short-tempered, brushing off my opinions with comments like, "Don't stress, it's just a flower arrangement," or, "Does it really matter where people sit?" But when Rose was around, he lit up differently. He joked with her, gave her his full attention, and sometimes even sided with her over me on decisions that should have been mine. It stung, but I told myself I was just overthinking things, that wedding stress was making me sensitive. Emily, though, wasn't so easily fooled. One evening after helping me organize bridesmaid gifts, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Jane, I don't like how Rose is acting around William. She's too interested, and he doesn't exactly look uncomfortable." I laughed it off, insisting that Rose was just excited for me and William was simply being friendly. Deep down, though, her words stuck with me. Then the small lies began to pile up. William would say he was working late, yet when I called, he wouldn't answer. Later, Rose would casually mention spending time with him, saying they were sorting out some details for the wedding. At first, I didn't question it. Maybe they were just trying to surprise me with something sweet. But the more it happened, the more uneasy I became. One night, When William claimed he had a last-minute meeting, Rose texted me around the same time saying she was out helping him finalize things. My stomach twisted. The timelines lined up too perfectly, and yet I silenced my gut. I told myself not to ruin the happiness I was supposed to be feeling. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid, that my sister would never cross that line, and that William loved me too much to betray me. But in the back of my mind, a quiet voice whispered that something wasn't right, and ignoring it would become the biggest mistake of my life. The night before my wedding was supposed to be magical, a final celebration before I stepped into a new chapter of my life. Emily had planned a simple bachelorette evening for me. Nothing too wild, just a cozy dinner with a few close friends, some laughter, and the kind of support only your best girls can give. We toasted to love, to the future, to the life I was about to begin. For a while, everything felt perfect. I could almost forget the nagging doubts that had been gnawing at me for weeks. But then Rose disappeared. Halfway through the evening, I noticed her chair was empty. At first, I assumed she had stepped out to take a call, but minutes turned into nearly an hour. When I texted her, she replied with a vague, "Be back soon, don't worry." No explanation, no details. It felt strange. She had been so involved in everything leading up to the wedding. So why vanish now, on the night before one of the most important days of my life? I tried to shake it off, focusing on the friends who were still there, but my mind kept circling back to her. Then, almost as if on cue, I thought of William. He had told me earlier that he'd be spending the evening with his groomsmen. It was tradition, after all, and I didn't question it. But when I tried calling him, just to hear his voice, just to share a quick, "I can't wait for tomorrow," he didn't answer. I called again. No response. Texted. Nothing. That uneasy feeling, the one I had been pushing down for weeks, began to rise again, heavy and suffocating. Emily noticed immediately. She leaned closer and whispered, "Jane, something's not right. Rose disappears, William's unreachable? That's too much to be a coincidence." I forced a laugh, brushing off her concern. "It's fine. He's probably busy with his friends. And Rose, well, maybe she needed some air." My words sounded weak even to myself, but I clung to them. I couldn't let suspicion ruin this moment. Not tonight. Emily didn't look convinced. She kept pressing gently, suggesting maybe we should check. Maybe I should call again. Maybe we should even drive by William's hotel. But I shook my head. "No," I said firmly, though my heart was racing. "Tomorrow I marry him. I'm not going to doubt him now." The rest of the night felt like I was moving through fog. My friends laughed and chatted, but I was distracted, my mind replaying Rose's sudden disappearance and William's silence. Still, I buried my doubts, forcing myself to smile and sip my drink, pretending everything was fine. But deep inside I knew. I couldn't put it into words yet, couldn't face the truth, but the tension hung heavy in the air. Something was brewing, and though I tried to ignore it, part of me sensed that by morning, my world would never look the same again. The morning of my wedding arrived with a kind of glow I had never felt before. For a moment, all the doubts, all the stress of planning melted away. I woke up early, my heart racing with excitement. This was it, the day I had been dreaming about since I was a little girl. I remember smiling at my reflection in the mirror, whispering to myself, "Today, you become Mrs. Jane Carter." I decided to head to the bridal suite earlier than planned. I wanted a quiet moment with my dress, the one I had picked so carefully months before. It wasn't just fabric and lace. It felt like a symbol of everything I had worked toward, every hope I had for the future. But when I opened the door to the suite, my stomach dropped. The dress wasn't hanging where I had left it. The empty hanger swayed slightly, mocking me. My pulse quickened. Maybe one of the bridesmaids had moved it? Maybe someone was steaming it? I clung to those excuses as I walked further inside, my hands trembling. Then I heard voices, soft at first, then clearer. A laugh that made my blood run cold. I pushed open the adjoining door, and the sight that greeted me stole the air from my lungs. There was Rose, my own sister, standing in front of the mirror, wearing my wedding dress. The ivory gown wrapped around her body like it belonged to her. And behind her was William, his hands resting possessively on her waist. For a moment, I froze, my body refusing to move, my brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. The world tilted. This couldn't be real. This had to be some cruel dream. Rose turned first, her expression not one of guilt, but of smug satisfaction. Her lips curved into the smallest smirk, as though she had been waiting for me to catch them. William, on the other hand, paled instantly, his hands dropping from her waist as he stumbled over his words. "Jane, it's not what it looks like," he stammered, his voice shaky, his eyes darting everywhere except mine. "Not what it looks like. My sister in my dress, his hands on her. That image was burned into me. I couldn't unsee it." Rose tilted her head, almost daring me to react. "You came earlier than expected," she said coolly, as if I was the one interrupting something normal. A wave of heat flushed through me, anger, shame, heartbreak all at once. My throat tightened, but no words came. The trust, the love, the years I had invested in both of them shattered into 1,000 pieces in that instant. I couldn't stand there another second. Without saying a word, I turned and stormed out of the suite, the sound of William's voice calling after me echoing down the hallway. My vision blurred with tears as I ran. The wedding I had dreamed of collapsing around me before it had even begun. My world had just crashed, and nothing would ever be the same again. I stumbled out of the bridal suite like the walls were closing in on me. My chest felt tight, my hands shaking as I tried to breathe. I couldn't stop seeing it, Rose in my dress, William's hands on her. Every step felt heavier, like my heart was dragging my whole body down. Before I could even think about what to do next, my parents spotted me in the hallway. "Jane, what on earth is going on?" my mom, Linda, asked, rushing toward me. I opened my mouth, but the words tangled in my throat. She was in my dress. With him. I finally choked out, my voice breaking. Instead of shock or outrage, my mom's face softened in that overly gentle way she always reserved for Rose. "Honey," she must have been confused. "Rose probably just wanted to see how it looked, that's all. Don't ruin your big day over a misunderstanding." My dad, Mark, nodded quickly. "Your mother's right. The guests are already arriving. Let's just smooth this over. You've worked too hard for today to fall apart." I stared at them, disbelief flooding me. Confused? A misunderstanding? How could they defend her after what I had just seen? It was like they were asking me to swallow glass and pretend it was candy. Then William appeared, his face flushed, his voice desperate. "Jane, please listen to me. It was nothing. You're overreacting. Rose was just trying the dress and look, it didn't mean anything. Don't throw everything away over this. Everyone's here, waiting for us. Do you really want to humiliate yourself?" The way he said humiliate yourself instead of humiliate me told me everything. He cared more about appearances than the fact he had destroyed my trust. Something inside me snapped. My tears dried up, leaving behind a cold, burning anger. "Nothing," I whispered, my voice trembling but sharp. "You call my sister in my wedding dress and your hands all over her nothing?" His jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic. Just be reasonable. We can talk later. Right now, we need to get through this wedding." That was it. My parents begging me to ignore it, William minimizing it like I was the problem. I couldn't take it. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the venue, my heels clicking against the marble floor like gunshots. By the time I reached the parking lot, I was sobbing. My whole body shook, the weight of betrayal finally crushing me. I dialed Emily, barely able to speak. She answered on the first ring. "Jane? What happened?" "Emily, it's them. Both of them." My voice cracked, the pain pouring out. Within minutes, she was there, wrapping me in her arms, letting me collapse against her shoulder. "Let it out," she whispered, holding me as I cried. But somewhere between the sobs, a thought sparked in me. I couldn't just walk away, leaving them to twist the story and carry on like nothing had happened. No, they had taken everything from me, but I still had my voice. And I was going to use it. I would expose them, and I wouldn't stop until everyone saw them for who they really were. Emily refused to let me drown in the heartbreak. After the breakdown in her arms, she looked me in the eye and said, "Jane, if you want to expose them, you need proof. Not just your word, something solid they can't deny." Her voice was steady, firm, the exact opposite of how I felt. I nodded, wiping my tears, because she was right. I couldn't let them spin this into some misunderstanding. The first break came faster than I expected. Emily had connections everywhere. Her cousin worked part-time at the hotel where William and his groomsmen were staying. Quietly, she asked around, and soon, one of the staff admitted they had seen Rose coming in and out of William's room more than once. Not just during the wedding week, but over the last few months. Sometimes late at night, sometimes in the mornings. The staff even said they joked about how friendly the bride's sister was with the groom-to-be. My stomach twisted at the thought. So it wasn't a one-time slip. It wasn't some heat-of-the-moment mistake. It had been deliberate, ongoing, planned. But hearsay wasn't enough. I needed something undeniable. That chance came when Emily and I stopped by her apartment to regroup. William, in his panic earlier, had left his laptop there from the rehearsal night. He'd asked her to print something for him, and in the chaos, he hadn't taken it back. My hands shook as I stared at it sitting on her desk, the sleek silver cover almost daring me to open it. Part of me hesitated. Did I really want to know the full truth? But another part, the colder, harder part, needed it. Emily put her hand on mine. "If you don't look, they'll control the story. This is your chance." So I opened it. He hadn't even bothered to log out. My breath caught as I scrolled through messages. Long threads of texts and emails, some with Rose's name right at the top. I forced myself to read them, even though every word felt like a blade cutting deeper. "Can't wait until she's too busy to notice us. You look better in that dress than she ever will. When we're alone, I feel alive. She's just boring now." The messages stretched back months. They had been mocking me, planning secret meetups, using excuses that I had believed without question. Each line burned away another piece of the love I once had for both of them. The tears didn't come this time. Instead, an icy calm settled over me. My heart was broken, yes, but the fire of rage that had been wild and chaotic before had turned sharp, precise. This wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty, intentional and cold. I closed the laptop, my reflection staring back at me from its dark screen. They thought they could play me for a fool, I whispered, but they're about to learn who they're really dealing with. Emily squeezed my shoulder, a small, knowing smile on her face. I wasn't just a broken bride anymore. I was a woman with proof. And soon, William and Rose would face the full weight of what they had done. I knew if I confronted them in anger, they'd twist the story, play the victim, and I'd be painted as the dramatic bride who couldn't handle stress. So instead of shouting, I planned. With Emily's help, I set up what I called a forgiveness dinner. I sent out messages to my parents, to Rose, and even to William, telling them I wanted to sit down and clear the air. The responses came quickly. My mom replied first, relieved, saying she was glad I was ready to be reasonable. My dad echoed her sentiment, urging me to focus on family. Rose sent back a simple, smug finally. William's reply made me sick. I knew you'd calm down. Let's fix this. They all walked into the restaurant that evening looking far too confident. My parents carried hopeful smiles, like this was just a minor family argument about to be patched up. Rose wore a tight dress and a smug expression, like she had already won. William held himself with that same arrogance he always had, convinced he could charm me back into silence. Jane, my mother said warmly as she slid into her seat. We're so glad you called us here. Families go through rough patches, but forgiveness is what matters. I forced a smile, calm and collected. Exactly. That's why I wanted this dinner. I thought it was time to put everything on the table. We ordered food, and I let the conversation flow easily at first. William cracked jokes, Rose chimed in with her little comments, and my parents relaxed, believing the storm had passed. I nodded, laughed where appropriate, playing my part as if I were softening. Inside, though, I was waiting for the right moment. It came just after the main course, when everyone was settled, sipping their drinks, smug in their false victory. I set my phone on the table, connected it to the small projector Emily had helped me bring, and with one tap, the screen behind me lit up. At first, no one understood. Then the words appeared. Screenshots of William and Rose's messages, their mocking jokes about me, their late-night plan. Gasps filled the table. My father's jaw dropped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Rose's smirk vanished instantly, replaced by a flash of panic and then fury. Jane, what are you doing? William stammered, his face draining of color. I ignored him, tapping again to show hotel receipts with Rose's name listed as a guest in William's room. The staff logs followed, documenting her repeated visits. Every piece of evidence stacked higher, undeniable, unshakable. Silence hung thick. My parents couldn't meet my eyes. Rose slammed her glass down, her voice rising. You set me up. No, I said calmly, standing from my chair. You set yourself up. I just made sure no one could ignore it. William reached out, desperate, but I pulled away. With one final look around the table, at my humiliated ex, my furious sister, and my stunned parents, I lifted my chin and walked out. I didn't need their apologies. I had already won by exposing the truth. The fallout was faster than even I expected. News spread through my family like wildfire. By the end of the week, every relative knew what Rose and William had done. At family gatherings, her name turned into a whisper. Aunts shook their heads, uncles muttered under their breath, and cousins who once looked up to her now avoided her. My parents, Linda and Mark, walked into church one Sunday only to be met with stares and hushed conversations. They couldn't escape the embarrassment. Their golden daughter had been exposed, and no one was willing to pretend it hadn't happened. Rose tried to put on a brave face, acting like she didn't care. But I knew better. She thrived on attention, on being adored, and now she had become the family scandal. It ate away at her, and for once, she couldn't turn it back on me. William's downfall came just as swiftly, though in a different way. After going through all those messages and receipts, I noticed a pattern. Company credit cards being used for hotel stays, dinners, and gifts, all tied to Rose. He wasn't just cheating. He was stealing from his own employer to fund their affair. Quietly, I made sure that information reached the right people. A few emails, a few forwarded screenshots, and within days, his boss had all the evidence he needed. By the end of the month, William was out of a job. The man who once boasted about his career and stability suddenly had nothing. The smug confidence he used to carry like armor disappeared, replaced by desperation. But I didn't feel sorry for him. He had made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. My parents, however, couldn't accept the reality so easily. They called me again and again, pleading with me to forgive Rose, to remember she's still your sister. My mother cried on the phone, telling me I was breaking the family apart by cutting ties. My father tried to reason, saying, "Mistakes happen, Jane. Don't throw away your family over one bad decision." But I was done being guilted into silence. For years, they had favored Rose, overlooked her flaws, and expected me to carry the weight of keeping peace. Not anymore. I'm not the one who broke this family, I told them firmly. She did. And you did by defending her. Then I blocked their numbers. Through all of this, Emily never left my side. She stayed with me when the loneliness crept in, reminding me I wasn't as alone as I felt. We laughed again, even in the middle of my grief, and she reminded me of the strength I had forgotten I carried. Eventually, I started therapy. Walking into that office for the first time, I felt exposed, raw, but it became the place where I learned to breathe again. I began to rebuild myself piece by piece, not as someone's fiancé, not as someone's sister, but as Jane, whole on my own. The betrayal had broken me, but it was also shaping me into someone stronger than I ever imagined. It didn't take long before Rose tried to spin her disaster into a new beginning. Months after the wedding fiasco, she and William started parading themselves around as a couple. Social media posts, fake smiles, captions about finding true love. It was pathetic to watch, but I let them have their little performance. Deep down, I knew people weren't buying it. Everyone still remembered what they had done. Then the inevitable happened. William did to Rose exactly what he had done to me. He cheated, and he didn't even try very hard to hide it. A friend of Emily's spotted him at a bar with another woman, his hands all over her, whispering into her ear the same way he used to with me. Soon after, photos started circulating, messages leaked. Karma had arrived right on schedule. I almost laughed when I heard Rose was planning to marry him despite everything. She wanted to prove to the world she had won, that she had taken something from me and turned it into her happily ever after. But the foundation of their relationship was rot, and it crumbled quickly. Before the wedding could even take place, I anonymously slipped her the proof, screenshots of his late-night texts to other women, receipts from hotel stays that weren't with her. I didn't sign my name, didn't leave any mark, but Rose knew exactly where it came from. She exploded. Everyone heard about her meltdown. She blamed me publicly, crying that I was sabotaging her happiness. But no one took her seriously anymore. People rolled their eyes, whispering that she was only reaping what she had sown. Her reputation, already hanging by a thread, unraveled completely. She had betrayed me, stolen from me, and in the end, she was left humiliated, her cries for sympathy falling on deaf ears. Meanwhile, my life moved in the opposite direction. Therapy had opened doors in my heart I didn't know existed. I started focusing on myself, my career, my passions, the things that truly mattered. Not long after, I was offered a major promotion at work, the kind I had been chasing for years. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing tall again, not because of anyone else, but because of me. Emily and I celebrated my wins with small adventures, weekend trips, road drives, spontaneous nights out. We even started planning bigger travels, places I'd only dreamed of seeing. The freedom was intoxicating. I wasn't tied down by someone else's lies anymore. I was finally living for myself. As for William, without his job and without me, his life unraveled too. He tried clinging to Rose, but once she realized he wasn't her ticket to a fairy tale, she let him go. The last I heard, he was broke, jobless, and bouncing between couches, chasing anyone who would give him attention. And honestly, that was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. They both destroyed themselves, and all I had to do was step back and watch it happen. When I look back on everything that happened, it almost feels like I'm remembering someone else's life. The girl I was before all this, the one who ignored red flags, silenced her instincts, and believed love could fix anything, she doesn't exist anymore. What Rose and William did to me shattered my world, but it also forced me to rebuild myself in a way I never thought possible. The betrayal cut deeper than words can explain. It wasn't just losing a fiancé or being humiliated by my own sister. It was realizing that the people I trusted most could so easily throw me aside for their own desires. That truth broke me for a while. I cried until I had no tears left. I questioned my worth, replaying every moment, wondering if I had done something to deserve it. But as time passed, I realized the pain wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson, one that pushed me to grow stronger than I'd ever been. Revenge felt satisfying in the beginning, I won't lie. Watching Rose and William's carefully built lies collapse was a small victory. But the further I walked down my own path, the more I understood that I didn't need to keep looking over my shoulder, waiting for their next downfall. They were already living inside the consequences of their own choices. They had written their fates long before I exposed them. I didn't need to keep my hands dirty when life itself was dealing them justice. The real triumph came when I chose myself. Therapy taught me to rebuild, not for the sake of proving anything to them, but for the sake of living fully again. Emily's friendship reminded me what true loyalty looks like. My career gave me purpose, my travels gave me freedom, and for the first time in years, my reflection in the mirror showed a woman who stood tall. Not because of anyone else's approval, but because she finally believed in herself. People sometimes ask me if I ever forgave them. The truth is, forgiveness was never for them, it was for me. Carrying hate is heavy, and I was tired of giving them space in my heart. So I let it go. Not because they deserved it, but because I did. Rose is trapped in her own bitterness, William in his own failure. That's their story now, not mine. My story is about survival, growth, and learning that dignity is more powerful than revenge. In the end, I didn't need to ruin them with anger. They ruined themselves. I just had to step aside and let the truth do its work. And so, I close this chapter of my life with the words that keep me grounded every day. I walked away with dignity, and that was the best revenge I could ever give. Do you believe Jane made the right choice by leaving everything behind and choosing her dignity, or should she have given them another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next one.